Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, glancing over at your calendar and realizing something absolutely incredible. You don't have to go to work. And I don't mean because you got fired, and certainly not because you somehow won the lottery overnight. I mean you don't have to go to work because the income from the assets you've built up over the years is finally enough to cover your everyday living expenses. No panic, no stress, just pure choice. For millions of us, that sounds like the ultimate untouchable dream, right? Well, welcome to this explainer, where we're going to break down exactly what we call the architecture of financial freedom. Okay, let's dive right in. Right out of the gate, this brings up a massive question, and it's probably the exact one floating around in your head right now. Can you really live entirely on passive income? I mean, is it actually possible to build a life where your assets just quietly pay your bills in the background? Or is this whole thing just another internet fantasy sold by influencers trying to get clicks? To get to the bottom of this, we really have to separate the actual dream from that internet fantasy. Look, the internet absolutely loves to tout this myth of overnight, completely effortless wealth, the idea that you can just click a few buttons on a beach somewhere and suddenly be set for life. But today, we're going to explore the actual truth behind living on passive income. We'll look at the hidden challenges people rarely talk about and see how financial freedom is actually built. And spoiler alert here, it is built through extreme patience, not shortcuts. Chapter 1, Meet Olivia and Ryan.
So meet Olivia and Ryan. They're both 32 years old, they both have really solid jobs, and they both diligently save a chunk of their money every single month. Standard stuff, right? But one evening, Ryan drops a total bombshell. He casually tells Olivia his goal is simple. He wants to completely stop working by the time he hits 45. Now, Olivia naturally laughs at this and asks if he's planning to become a crypto millionaire overnight, but Ryan just shakes his head and delivers this brilliant, simple response. He says, "No, I'm planning to let time do most of the work." See, Ryan isn't banking on some crazy get-rich-quick scheme. He's banking on a patient, time-driven process. And this little comment makes Olivia curious enough to want to learn exactly how he plans to pull this off.
Let's look at active versus passive income. That curiosity leads us right into the core mechanics of how income is actually generated. Ryan breaks it down for Olivia like this. On one side, you have your active income. This is the money you earn by actively working. You're trading your literal time for a paycheck. And the second you stop working, well, that income stops right along with you. On the other side, you have passive income. Now, this usually comes from assets you've already built or invested in over time. Things like dividend investments, rental properties, maybe royalties or digital products. The value just continues to flow over time. But hey, notice how I emphasize the word usually just then? Keep that in the back of your mind because we are definitely going to come back to why that specific word is so incredibly important later on.
Next up, the water tank concept. To make this whole thing even clearer, Ryan introduces this really powerful visual metaphor. And honestly, if you want to understand cash flow and how financial independence actually functions on a day-to-day basis, this is the mental model you need. Imagine your monthly expenses are like water, constantly flowing out of a massive tank. Every single month, water drains out of the tank to pay for your housing, your groceries, your lifestyle. To keep that tank from running totally dry, new water has to enter. While you're working your day job, your active salary acts like a giant fire hose, keeping the tank topped up. But if you ever want to turn off that fire hose, meaning stop working, you have to install several new automatic pipes to match that outgoing water. If the incoming water from your passive assets consistently equals or exceeds the outgoing water, the tank stays full. That, right there, is the fundamental math of passive income.
So, building your income pipes.
How do you actually go about getting those automatic pipes installed? Let's look at the practical steps Ryan takes over the years to build his income without ever quitting his day job. He spends years methodically building up different sources. Step 1, he just invests regularly into the market. Step 2, he spends his evenings creating an online course. Step 3, he publishes a small photography guide. And Step 4, after some seriously careful planning and saving, he buys a small rental property. Now, each of these assets starts off incredibly small. Honestly, none of them change his life immediately. But Olivia notices something super crucial here. No single pipe is big enough to fill that tank on its own. And Ryan totally agrees. It's the combination of all these small pipes working together that actually gets the job done.
But, we really need a reality check here.
Let's bring this all back down to earth for a second. 5 full years pass. Ryan sits down to review his finances. His passive income has absolutely grown, sure, but he is completely disappointed to realize it still doesn't fully cover his living expenses. He actually feels like he's failing. But this is where Olivia steps in with a fantastic perspective. At age 37, 5 years into this whole journey, she tells him, Look, you've built half the bridge. Think about crossing a massive river. Reaching the halfway point doesn't mean you failed. Actually, scratch that. It means you're vastly closer than you were yesterday. Building enough passive income to support an entire human lifestyle takes extreme patience. It takes years, and sometimes even decades, to bridge that gap completely. By age 47, let's look at another analogy: the garden. To really understand how Ryan eventually secures that bridge, we need to think about a garden. Why did Ryan build so many different types of assets instead of just pouring all his energy into one massive one? Well, imagine planting fruit trees. If you only plant apple trees and a random disease wipes out your apple crop one year, you have literally nothing to eat. But if you diversify, let's say 25% of your income from rentals, 25% from investments, 25% from royalties, and 25% from business profits, you are highly protected. If one harvest is poor, your other trees are still providing fruit. Diversification doesn't magically eliminate all your risk, but it is hands down the absolute best way to manage it.
Which brings us to the hidden costs.
Now, remember earlier when I mentioned we'd come back to the word usually when talking about passive income? Well, here we go. Olivia kind of assumed that passive income meant zero responsibilities. Just sitting on a beach, sipping a drink and collecting checks. Ryan actually had to laugh out loud at that. He points out the actual day-to-day reality of his so-called passive assets. For instance, his rental property suddenly needed a brand new roof. His online course, that needed fresh content updates every year to stay relevant. His investments suffered through incredibly stressful market downturns, and his digital product website was always needing some kind of back-end maintenance. So much for that zero-work internet fantasy, right? The truth is, every single asset requires some level of ongoing oversight.
So the absolutely crucial point here is perfectly summarized in this quote from Ryan. The work changes. It doesn't disappear. Passive income rarely, if ever, means doing absolutely nothing. What it actually means is that you are no longer strictly dependent on trading your hourly time directly for a paycheck. You transition. You become a manager of your assets rather than an employee of your time.
Let's jump to 15 years later. So we fast forward a bit. Both Ryan and Olivia are now 47 years old, and looking back, we can see they took very different journeys to get to the exact same destination. Ryan, as we know, built multiple passive assets over the years, and his income now safely covers his living expenses. But here's the kicker. He still works part-time teaching, not because he has to, but because he genuinely loves doing it. Olivia, on the other hand, took a totally different route. She built fewer passive streams, but she significantly reduced her everyday expenses and invested heavily and consistently. And guess what? She also successfully reached financial independence. This proves something huge. There is no single magical blueprint to achieve this. It's really just about finding the math that works for your specific life. Let's talk about redefining financial freedom. If financial freedom isn't just about sitting around doing nothing all day, what does it actually look like in practice? True financial independence requires literal years of patiently building assets and making very thoughtful financial decisions. There are simply no quick fixes. It is heavily dictated by highly personal factors, things like your chosen lifestyle, what your expenses are, your savings rate, and your ultimate willingness to manage and tolerate risk. It's a highly personal architecture that you design yourself.
And this leads us to the climactic takeaway of our explainer today. Financial freedom isn't about doing nothing. It is entirely about having the freedom to choose. The real goal here isn't to eliminate work completely from your life. It's to reduce your baseline financial stress, gain immense flexibility, and take back total, uncompromised control over how you spend your time. It's about waking up on a Tuesday and not being forced into a schedule out of pure survival.
So, I want to leave you with this provocative final thought to really reflect on as you think about your own financial goals moving forward. Is the truly richest life the one with the absolute biggest paycheck? Or is it the one with the greatest freedom to choose exactly how each new day begins? Think about what your own water tank looks like right now, and maybe it's time to start patiently building your very first pipe. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep building.